This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. For too long, women's serious midlife health issues have been trivialized, ignored, and met with a just deal with it attitude. Many of us have been made to feel ashamed or forgotten. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But here's the powerful truth. It's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI is not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic, founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. What sets MIDI apart? We are the only women's telehealth brand covered by major insurance companies, making high-quality expert care accessible and affordable. Our clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. We offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions, from hormonal therapies and weight loss protocols to lifestyle coaching and preventative health guidance. This isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will join our patients who feel seen, heard, and prioritized. You will find that our mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the health care they deserve. Because we believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
If you're not using Ironclad for contracts, you could be leaving millions on the table without knowing it. Every contract holds renewal dates, pricing terms, and obligations you can't afford to miss. But good luck finding them when it matters. Ironclad's AI instantly surfaces what matters so you can act before opportunities slip away. That's why they're trusted by OpenAI, L'Oreal, and Salesforce. Find the savings hiding in your contracts at ironcladapp.com/podcast. That's ironcladapp.com/podcast.
Today's episode is going to stretch your imagination in the very best way. Imagine a guest pod or retreat space on your land that's beautiful, durable, fully customizable, and made from recycled plastic bottles. Sounds futuristic? Well, my goodness me, you might be right. I'm joined by Gean Eidelman, co-founder of Azure Printed Homes, a groundbreaking company revolutionizing how we build and how we think about building. With a background in innovation and a passion for sustainability, Gean and his team are transforming recycled materials into stunning, eco-conscious structures using cutting-edge 3D printing technology. In this episode, we cover what printed homes really are and how the process actually works, why this technology is perfectly suited for off-grid and eco-glamping sites, how using materials like recycled bottles and food containers isn't just possible, it's powerful, and the real-world benefits for hosts, from reduced costs and build time to serious sustainable credentials. We also explore how the Azure approach allows for incredible design freedom, making it easier than ever to bring your unique vision to life. Whether you're adding a single pod or planning a full-scale resort, this is one of those conversations that will leave you full of ideas with a fresh perspective and maybe just a touch of awe. Let's dive in because the future has already arrived. Glamping and unique holiday rentals are surging in popularity with the growing desire of customers to book holidays that deliver an experience. They are also the new business of choice for those wanting to improve their work-life balance. So how do you build a strong business like this that gives you the life you need and a great investment? I'm Sarah Riley, and I want to share what I've discovered after being immersed in this industry for over 20 years to inspire you to find out more about what's going on. Welcome, this is the business of glamping and unique holiday rentals. Before we start with the episode, I want to share something with you. For years, I've been guiding people to launch and grow their own unique glamping businesses and transformational retreat events. And honestly, I've lost count of the number of times someone said to me, "This is great, but can you just do it for me?" For a long time, my answer has been no, but not anymore. Now I've built a team, a hand-picked collective of trusted creative experts who understand our industry. We've come together to offer done-for-you marketing and business support, so you can stop carrying it all on your own and start focusing on what you love most, creating beautiful experiences and lifelong memories for your guests. Because let's be honest, until now your team has been you, and that's just not enough. You wear all the hats, manage all the customers, and still need to figure out the ever-changing world of marketing. Bookings dip, algorithms shift, competition gets fierce. You become less visible and it feels like you're carrying the world on your shoulders. But now you can expand your team without having to expand your payroll and finally get the help you need to take the pressure off and move forward. To find out more about the team you've always wanted but never had, head over to inspiredcourses.com/team and learn about what Inspired Collective offers. And let's get some of those to-dos off your plate. But be aware that we only have capacity to work with a handful of people, so if you're interested, be sure to get in touch. All right, back to the episode. Gean, it's so wonderful to see you and really grateful for you to spend some time with me today to talk about the amazingness which is Azure Printed Homes. Now, some people, they'll be saying to themselves, printed homes? What on earth is that? So let's start there. Explain what it is and how it works.
Sure. Well, Sarah, nice to see you as well. And yeah, we've met at the Glamping show, and it was great to see you in Greece at the Eco Resort Network. To answer your question, we were looking for ways to build faster, less expensive, and with less environmental impact. That was the mission of the company when we started. We had no idea that we were going to come up with a way to print them. But our first moment of I'm just thinking through this, we just decided that building structures in a factory makes a lot more sense than doing them on site. And it's not a structure, but homes. And it's just when you do it in the factory, there is a climate control, so you're not slowed down by weather, higher quality control, so you can actually monitor when every step is made. And again, it is much more predictable in terms of materials, so you can order just what you need. But I started doing this during COVID, and there were all kinds of disruptions in supply chain. So even that didn't move the needle, didn't move much faster. So we saw 3D printing of buildings. It started about 10 years ago in Europe, actually in France, where first family moved into a 3D printed house, but all of that was done with cement, concrete. And just by definition, cement is terrible for the environment. The construction industry is the third worst polluter, primarily because of the use of cement, and cement generates CO2. So we said, is there any way to 3D print, but use a determined material? And also, printing with cement, you have to do it on site. For our industry, for eco resort and glamping, they're just small structures spread out all places. It's just impractical to bring multi-million-dollar piece of equipment to a site to print. So we found alternative material, and so we use this material as a combination of fiberglass and recycled polymers to print them in the factory. The process is totally automated, much faster. There is plenty of recycled water bottles all over the world in food containers. And the structures that come out, they're much lighter than cement or than any traditional material. So they're easier to take to isolated places. They're very strong. Being, we're based in California, which is probably the most regulated place in the world. So we have to prove that it can withstand the earthquake and the high winds. But we also ship to areas where there's snow, so snow loads. Yeah, so we met all of those criteria, and being contractors to get into this, or developers, we really thought about how can this units be permitted, insured, and financed. And so once we answered those questions and answered the regular questions, make sure that the structures are are can basically alternative material for construction codes. We started making them and started shipping them. So
I want to, just in case somebody's in their car and they're listening to the podcast, or they're cleaning up their property because the guests have left or whatever, I just want to make sure they heard what it's made from. That it's
yeah,
made from plastic bottles and plastic food containers and mixed up with some fiberglass. That's correct, yes?
that's correct. Yeah, the fiberglass is a material that adds the strength and meets all of the criteria. So the recycled plastic actually acts like as a resin. It basically connects the layers of fiberglass. So, well, 65% of the combined weight is the recycled plastic. It really has the strengths of the fiberglass. And if you can think of what they use fiberglass as boats, speed boats are made from fiberglass. A lot of cars. So this is very strong material. And to make every structure, we use 500 layers of this as a printer goes round and round. And so every layer needs to be attached to the layer before that. And so recycled plastic is a great resin that allows this connection to work.
So, how does it work in terms of how big it is, the printer that does this? Because you're talking about printing in one go a big
Right.
structure that someone can live in. So,
Right.
how does that work and how big is that printer? Tell me about
Right.
that process.
Right. So we use probably the largest industrial robots. They can go up to the required height that we have. And so we print units that are 10 and a half feet tall, 20 feet long, and 9 feet wide. And these are modules. So then we can connect the modules together to make them 5 times that module. But a large robot cannot reach to all these dimensions I mentioned. So we've invented a platform. Think of it as basically it's a rotating platform. And so instead of the robot reaching out to the furthest corner of the structure, the platform brings the human to the robot. So that was the kind of the aha moment because we couldn't find anything off the shelf that printed the structures and the sizes that we wanted. So that what took some innovation, some thought through how can we make this. But primarily, we couldn't find anything that prints anything over 5 feet tall. 4 or 5 feet was the maximum, and we wanted to print the whole thing, like you mentioned, all in one go. That's 10.5 feet tall. So it was really an idea that you sometimes see this rotating in the Chinese restaurant, right? You have this in the UK.
They call
You
it
have a
a lazy Susan in the
lazy
US.
Susan, right? Lazy Susan brings the meal to you. This is exactly it is. Or a lot of Chinese food that made you think of this. So
I love that. I love that. So tell me, if I was somebody in the glamping world, I've got my land, I want to choose structures, but I want to have a structure that I've designed or my architect's designed. And it's a little bit different, and I'd like to use recycled materials. I mean, how does the design aspect happen? Do you just plug it into a computer and then it just prints out exactly what you want? Explain that a bit
yeah,
for me.
yeah, it's somewhat like you described, but maybe not as simple. So if somebody wants to buy one or two structures, they can go to our website and pick. We have like 4 different designs. But if somebody wants to create a resort, like the client we have now, I talked about that client, eco resort, then they're buying 30 units. Now we have ability to really be creative. The reality is designing for 3D printer is much easier than designing for a traditional wood structure, and we're limited by a 2x4. You don't have to have square corners for anything, right? So we really have a process that we can take somebody's vision and combine that with some of the options that we have and create a structure that meets their criteria. And what's exciting about current state of the world is we can actually use AI. Somebody could send us a picture of if they saw something or just a hand-drawn picture of what they'd like to do. And when I'm going to create something, and maybe it doesn't necessarily meet 100% of what that picture shows, but we can have a design agent take a look at all the different shapes that we've already printed, and we can make something that really fits the criteria. We print only 4 sides of the structure, so the roof, 2 sides, and the floor. So really, just by definition, the front and the back are totally open for customization. You can have a sliding door or a regular door. We can have more glass or no glass. So really, to begin with, the front and the back, or the way it looks, and the exterior you use is totally subject to customization. But we really can design something that's very unique. And you know how in the eco resorts or in glamping resorts, people don't necessarily want to stay in the same unit, right? So we can even create 4 or 5 different variations where you can name them whichever kind of a name ideas you have, and they will have a different look. We can also create we're working with a resort in Colorado where there's going to be beautiful views of the night sky. You can see Milky Way without telescope, and they want to have a sky, more than just skylight. They want to have much more of a view of this beautiful sky when you're in Europe. So all kind of things are possible. And it's much easier because you really are, just like I said, you're not using traditional materials that have to be square or rectangular, and we're not using the roof that blocks the sky. So we really can make it. And the other advantages of what we're doing, they're very well insulated. So because we actually print, as a printer goes around, it prints the outside wall, and then it makes a little torque, and it prints the inside wall, and then we leave space in the middle for insulation. So the units are very well insulated. Any standard you look around the world, the standards call for fire insulation on the roof, maybe a little bit lower in the walls and very little in the floor because you have a cement pad. Well, we're insulated all the way around. So we usually take the highest insulation that's required in the roof, and it's all the way around. And what you find with this is a couple of things. First of all, units are very quiet. I don't know whether you remember when people see our units at the shows, when they come in and you close the door, people are just amazed how quiet they can be. Secondly, because they're so well insulated, even when you install air conditioning, heating, it can run with the solar power. So many of our installations are in places that are off grid. And the reason is, normally if the unit is not well insulated, then you need a lot more power to run the air conditioning. But if you have a AC unit that doesn't need to work as hard because the place is insulated, then you can have just 3 solar panels with a battery run both air conditioning, and it's all electric. So it has a refrigerator, microwave, a stove. So a very efficient system. So it's really good for that as well.
I remember standing inside one of your structures in Colorado and thinking how insulated it was. And as you said, as soon as you shut that door, the sound of the show was just gone. You couldn't hear anything. It was really quite incredible. And I remember I remember hearing you say, when someone said to you, so what about the interior? How much does that cost? And you said, oh no, well, that's all done at the same time. So is that all part of the design process? It's all happens?
Yeah, well, it's done really in the factory. Interior, really, you can decorate on the interior any way you want. So the 3D printing process just creates the structure or the module. On the inside, it's up to your imagination. Because it's done in the factory, it's done a lot quicker. You just think about it. We don't have to deliver appliances to the side. We don't have to deliver air conditioning we talked about, and then all the kitchen cabinets are made inside. So subject to customization, again, you can select from what we have, what we offer. We offer a couple lighting options, 3 or 4 cabinet options. But if you really want to, if you're interior decorator and you have a real I've seen some beautiful eco resorts that design great interior designers. So we can pretty much take a lead from you. And I mean, we're really the idea was to create a unit that meets any kind of residential or commercial code, just using alternative material. On the inside, it can look, and actually, I really think that once they are, because we're now delivered to 6 different states. Majority of deliveries are in California, but also delivered in Colorado, Texas, Georgia, Arkansas, South Carolina. And what we're hearing from people that while the owner or operator is really excited about this, many times the people who stay in them have no idea that how it was done. And I think that's the idea. I mean, it can be novelty to begin with, but the ultimate goal is for people just to enjoy their stay, right? So we don't need to get in the nitty gritty of how it was made or what was used. It is, especially for resorts, that really are eco-conscious. You can start there. You can start by saying, look, we had no wasted material. We used recycled materials. And that could be used for marketing. And it is used for marketing by many people. Because to really, and you and I know, we've stayed in some of these resorts that where the eco resort conference is held. And if you have a commitment to do it properly, no plastic, it's a little bit of inconvenience, but after about the first night, you get used to it. If you need some water, just go down to the water fountain and get your water bottle filled. So it just goes towards the whole commitment of the resort owner and operator to have something that doesn't damage the environment and actually uses the waste to create something beautiful.
Absolutely. And so the exterior, can you mix it with a paint or a color to allow it to be any color that you choose? So if, for example, you are quite a branded property and all of your structures are a bit branded, can you do that? Or can you tailor it?
We apply a stain to the unit after it was finished. And the reason is we really achieved two things with the stain is we had fire protection and it's a matte stain material. Both have UV stabilizer because again, if you think about plastic phase, right? If you leave water bottle in the sun. So we use, but the manufacturer work with us all kind of options. So even if you see our units in the wild out there, there already been many copies. But so you can have your branded color, or you can decide I want to have different colors. Just to differentiate a little village or how the units look. So yeah, that's definitely open to options.
Yeah, because so often people, they want to be different. They want their business to be different and they want people to talk about it. So it's really good if you can give those little nuances, the little differences that people can choose that fits their own palette of their brand and things like that. So, I mean, that's fantastic. And do you think that printed homes and printed structures, do you think this is a future trend? Or is this something that you probably are the only one who's actually got the effort and the fire in his belly to make it happen?
We talked about this before this podcast. When we invented it, it wasn't to win any kind of awards. We're just looking for the way to build faster and less expensive, right? And using less waste. But it's been great that we've been recognized now as innovation that's worth paying attention. We received numerous awards in the last 6 months. And the reason people are starting to pay attention is that, first of all, they look beautiful, right? You want to recognize something that has nice pictures. But most importantly, the shortage of housing is such a massive problem. Where we were short for housing to begin with, not only in the US, but all over the globe. I mean, it's universal. I can land any place in the world and ask, do you have a lot of housing? And the answer is always, we're from house, right? But when people say that, it's not that necessarily people short on housing. It's like people are short on affordable housing, right? There are plenty of mansions that are standing around the world that they're empty. People either use them as part-time or rent them, but it's lack of affordable housing. And then On top of that, you add all of the environmental problems that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. They're just accelerating. Whether you want to believe that we have climate crisis or not, there's something that causes just huge destruction of properties. Here in Los Angeles in January, so just about 5 months ago, we lost 16,000 structures, $10 billion worth of loss. Yeah, California, I researched the subject over the last 100 years, and we've had just numerous wildfires, but they're getting worse and worse, and they happen more often and more often. But also, you see, Hawaii lost 2,200 homes the last 2 years ago. Still have only 20% of those have been rebuilt. Turkey lost, over 200,000 homes through an earthquake. Fraction of that was rebuilt. Yeah, and then you have wars. We're living in a world where instead of just losing a couple homes here and there, when these ballistic missiles fly, destruction in hundreds of thousands. So we are losing housing at an accelerated pace, and we cannot continue to do what we've always done. Look at the lack of innovation in construction. 100 years ago, there was a carpenter, there was a hammer, and a nail. Compared to other industry, there was a horse and a buggy. 100 years later, we have electric vehicles, and what do we have in construction? The same carpenter, the same hammer and nail. So of all of the industries, and you can point to any other industry. The way we make clothes. Yeah, 100 years ago, people would still own their shirts and clothes at home. Now they're factories. On and on and on. Any kind of product, we went from kind of doing it at home to using some very primitive methods to using technology. Construction, very little changed. So it's on one hand, people shouldn't be surprised that things are so expensive because things just happen. And now, again, when we started the business, it was cost, time, and environmental impact. Now it's tariffs. Again, every country, by the way, has this material that we're using. According to sure. Second, shortage of labor. In construction, it kind of was over the years where there's less and less young people who want to go in construction fields because it's hard. It's hard. You work in the hot weather and cold weather, so you've been losing people who want to go in industry. In the United States, we have this immigration enforcement now. A third of construction industry in the U.S. is done by illegal labor. So when things were bad to begin with in terms of having enough qualified contractors, we're losing them every day. They're afraid to come to the job site because immigration agents might come and snag. So it's kind of, if anything, it's getting worse. And what this industry response is, I'll just continue to do it the same way. So the change had to happen. We're here to do it.
And I love it that it's not just in housing, it's also in recreation and tourism. I love that. And a couple of figures that you said to me before, which is this eco-friendly method is 70% faster than normal construction, or what's considered normal construction, and it's 30% cheaper. So you're saving 30% of your build construction budget by going down this non-traditional route. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's achieved in the first day. Basically, the fact that we can print this module in one day. Look, I've been building my whole adult life. We go from what's required usually take 3 months to 1 day. So that's a huge saving. And the same thing in the cost. It's from having experienced carpenters with a big crew. And you really need to be experienced because it's critical to do the initial structure correctly. If you don't do that right, then you have walls that don't look right, and electric doesn't look right. That first step where you need the most experienced, the most expensive people. And here it's done with a push of a button, works 24 hours a day, doesn't take lunch, all of those things. So it's both the cost saving and the time saving is achieved in that first moment. And of course, as well as the design the same way, we have a lot more flexibility rather than wait for months to have a set of plans that can be reviewed and then fixed in the field. So often, again, by building buildings that last 35 years. So many contractors are just workers. Give them read the plans. And then they take a look at the picture and then they go build it. And then you look at the plans. That's not sad. So there is just a lot of additional advantages that are achieved through this process.
And so just to give me an idea of what happens after it's been printed, how does it then get to the site? Because it's printed as a whole thing, isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
literally taken from your warehouse and it's transported. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, actually, there are several steps involved. So after it gets printed, we really have like a production line here. So first step is we insulate. We fill those voids. Secondly, we put all the wiring in. We create what we call channels on the inside. So there's places for electric, mechanical, water, plumbing. And then after that's done, then you put panels that act like drywall, basically, walls on the interior. And then cabinets are on, and then plumbing fixtures arrive, and then shower gets finished. So there's really about 8 steps from the print to finished product. And then depending on what customers buy, so a lot of the glamping resorts buy from us what we call park models. These are units that come on wheels. In the US, a lot of times in the rural areas or on campgrounds, they've been allowing RVs. So the park model is a unit built in accordance with RV standard. And what it really means is the chassis, the trailer, it meets that standard. On the house itself, it's like what we discussed. So if that's the case, our units are very light and the pickup truck can haul it nearby or across the country. But if people want to install the same unit attached to foundation, then it goes on a kind of a flatbed of a truck, and usually we can fit from 2 to 4 different freight depending on size, and then the truck hauls them around. And when they arrive, again, if they arrive on wheels, a lot of times the just truck puts it in place, so there is nothing required. If it arrives in a flatbed truck, then people either use a crane, or again, if it's easy to access, you can just pick it up with a little transporter and put it in place. So multiple ways of getting it there. But again, they're light. So I don't know, you remember I was in pictures of like in Big Sur. People say, how did you get it? Well, we didn't get it from the front, from where there's a cliff, but from the back along the dirt road, we were able to bring it to the side. So again, just a lot of advantages. Actually interesting. When we were designing this, we were just thinking of smaller, affordable home. First client who came and bought our unit, there were 2 guys pulled up on Harley Davidsons, and they had the vision. And I just said, what are you, tell me, what are you getting this for? And it's just for glamping resort. So I quietly pulled my phone under the table to look up what glamping means. That is what's unique about our brand. Look, this is my 4th startup. And in previous ones, I always had an idea, I'd build it, and then I want to sell it. With Azure, what has happened was we created our first prototype and posted on Facebook, and people had their own ideas. I mean, we just could never imagine this kind of use, or again, we're thinking of affordable housing, but couple contract was just signed this week. I mean, last week was to rebuild some luxury homes that were lost to fire, so you can use it for that. We signed a couple contracts in the last 2 months to do housing for the homeless. Again, these are much smaller units. They're much more rudimentary. I mean, a lot less glass, but the counties, we have tremendous homeless crisis all over the world, but particularly in California. And so two communities not far from us here are gonna, the beauty is they picked up product. These communities are pretty high end. So the residents didn't want to see the ugly kind of the tents, tents or this metal buildings. So they can have something, and they really serious something that's practical. Affordable housing does not need to be done. And so it was totally acceptable to them to have housing for the unhoused. And again, they're seeing this because it is so much less expensive and traditional method. Now they have more money for rehab and vocational training. So they're just thinking about this for 3 years. So one community is buying it. Instead of building foundation, we created this bolt. We can just bolt it into the parking lot. It's going to be a parking lot for a hospital, and then 3 years later, it can be recycled. I mean, that's another beauty. Our product has a true ability to just to recycle it once it's yours and create something else. And another community is taking everything off the wheels. And it's going to be very easy to install. Both of these projects, they just picked us. They'll be installed and occupied before the end of the year. So the speed really matters when somebody has something that's, and it's true for the rebuilding from natural disasters. So we talked about all this homes lost to fires, and some homeowners are putting up their land for sale because they've been kind of psyched out by contractors of how much it would cost to rebuild. And so they're saying, well, we're underinsured because their insurance proceeds are not able to have their rebuild. And so both of those contractors were brought to us by a general contractor who took the challenge. And so tell me how much you're getting from insurance. Let me figure out the way to build it less expensive and faster. And people will lose tremendous amount of equity in their home when they just sell the lift. So rebuilding, and that's again based on experience. I lived through wildfire myself in Malibu here some 6 years ago. So people who rebuild, their values actually increased because they now build modern home, current standards. The view is still the same, it's still beautiful. But people who lost generational wealth because they were psyched out by contractors who said, "Oh, it's going to cost you a fortune." So there are a lot of other benefits of what we do. It kind of makes me feel good.
Absolutely. And I think it should do is, I mean, just the recycling aspect there, that you can build something, you can recycle it and build something else. I mean, that's just incredible.
Now that's the definition of circular economy. Circular economy is using a product that can be used for its useful life and then using it for something else. And we're able to achieve this with this product.
There's very, very few products that actually can do that in construction that I'm aware of. In fact, I think I'm only aware of yours as a full structure, a livable structure. And your efforts were recognized recently when by the Oprah Winfrey Show, no less, when you helped to resettle 6,000 refugees from Eastern Europe to the US and give them housing through your product. I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah, that's actually happened quite a long time ago. It happened further after I came to this country. Yeah, I was an apartment developer, so I've always been in housing. So I had the units, and my family didn't care. I came here as a refugee. I'm originally from Ukraine, but on the way here, spent some time in Italy waiting for our papers to come through, and didn't care for how the resettlement effort was done here. We were almost guided towards financial assistance from the state and federal, and my dad didn't want to have anything to do with it. So we kind of spun off from that effort and just went about it on the way. It forced my brother and I to get a real estate licenses. We have to make a living. My dad started a business. So when I moved to Atlanta after college, I kind of followed my dad's vision. I started an effort in Atlanta, and I said, look, all of this, the directing of people towards public assistance is not the way. It's a disservice. It'd be much better to raise privately money. I had apartments and friends from furniture stores and people with money wrote checks. So we basically raised the amount of money, and we decided to handle a resettlement was instead of having a paid staff handle it, we actually matched every family that was coming with a family here in the States that were willing to provide I raised money to provide financial assistance for 90 days. That was our plan. It's 90 days. All you need to do is worry about learning English, learning how to drive a car, have some vocational training. If you were a doctor, you might start as a nurse. If you're an engineer, you might start as a draftsman, on and on and on. There are many ways. But the most important part of that was having a family who cared. Having a family could take kids to a doctor, help them find school, help them take to initial interview. The goal was in 90 days, they wouldn't help them get a job. They don't need any assistance, and if they have some connections to the community. So did this in Atlanta, and then went around southeast of the country and help other communities try to organize the same programs. And again, it was not a grand vision. It was like, that's what I would have appreciated when we came here.
Yeah.
And take it to scale. This way we resettled 6,000 refugees, one of the most successful, literally over 99% of the people did become financially independent after 90 days. Only people who were elderly or had disabilities here couldn't do that. But vast majority of people who were coming loved it. And I traveled around quite a bit. During that process, I brought rest of our family from the former Soviet Union, from Ukraine, from Russia. And I was just there last December walking through the mall, and people recognized me. And they were grateful. And I said, really, you're welcome. But it wasn't something that I did because I was looking for things. I just felt that that's the right way to do it. This is a method to this difficult problem. And it just made sense from living it myself. So that was that story.
It felt right to you, and it's, as you said, it was the way you wanted to be treated when you came into the country, and I think that's really commendable and fantastic. And actually, we need more people like you that can help integrate, different people, different nationalities with different needs. So
I think you almost look at any crisis we have. It's like the initiative comes from people who live the experience. That's when anytime we as a society try to force people to do certain things, it just doesn't work, So it's really, again, it's not that this is like a unique thing. You look at any situation, be it homelessness, be it, we'll lose thousands of homes to fires. It doesn't require a massive think tank effort. It just requires people who live through it and care and just do it. And so it wasn't me thinking, how do I get in the war? It was like, this is what I would do.
Absolutely. But I agree with you. However, you do need to have the feedback from people who've lived it so they can say what needed to happen instead that would be better. But you still need the visionaries to be able to turn that into action and to make that into something that will work. Because not everyone can turn that feedback into action. So I think you're obviously a visionary, as we can tell by the fact that you've got the business that you've got. But I've got to ask you the question. I mean, obviously you're based in the US and you've got facilities over there. Do you have anything in Europe?
Not yet, but my business partner and I are both Europeans. So my business partner, Ross McGuire, is from London. And of course, I'm Ukrainian. So we have a lot of friends, family, and connections to Europe. And quite honestly, the 3D printing industry came from Europe. So we envision coming to Europe. This year and next year, we are focusing on expansion in the US. But in 2027, we envision setting up factories around the globe. Even during the EcoResort meeting in Greece, I've talked to a number of people who'd like to bring it to their home countries. I followed that by to Dubai, and Dubai is committed to have 25% of their structures 3D printed by 2030. So people around the world are thinking about it. And then we get a bunch of inquiries from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and then any country that accepted a lot of immigrants over the last decade or two is short of housing. This drove Europe and all the other places. So we envision involving US, all of our factories are going to be owned and operated by ourselves. As we move in international expansion, and we need local partners. And they're really setting up a JV where local partner can, on one hand, bring capital to set up a facility like what we need. But while we can set up a manufacturing process, and we have the formula, the materials formula is our trade secret. That is, how Coca-Cola never patented their formula.
Yeah.
It's the thing, right? The formula is what it is, and we're on the fourth formula in 3 years. That is, going from construction to 3D printing, I never thought that would be the material science. That's kind of where we are. So we can manufacture and we can develop the material, but we need local partners, just like in Coca-Cola example, who can sell and distribute and install. So from companies who are in construction or companies who are in distribution, those are the kind of partners that we have. And of course, capital. The capital that makes the most sense is to have governments provide that, because if the government wants to have more affordable housing, so our second factory is opening later this year in Colorado, not far away from where Glamping show USA is being held, but it's a state that's providing 80% of the funding there, because they want to have more affordable housing. And a lot of what happens is when you have a local partner with the government, then they help you with adjusting their building codes to meet what you need. They also know who is looking to develop affordable housing, so they're really helping you with supply and sales. So having that kind of source makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Well, look, there's an opportunity right there for someone in construction who's been listening in. So I think that's a fantastic way to end. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to find out more, how do they do that?
Sure. The best way is probably LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm the only Gean Eidelman off, or by email. And we're also on Azure Printed Homes. It's on Instagram, Facebook. So multiple ways, just either by my name or by the name of the company, you can find us.
And I will include all the links and the email and everything else in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out, it's really easy just to click through from there. So thank you so much, Gean, for today. Really great to see you again. I absolutely wish you the best with this. I think it's inspired, unique, and I love those things, especially when they bring a bit of good to the world. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Sarah, thanks for the time and for pushing this forward. So take care. Have a great rest of the week.
You too. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Most drivers overpay for car insurance, not because they're careless, but because the system is needlessly complicated. Jerry fixes that. Traditional comparison sites give you quotes once, then disappear. But Jerry can handle all the insurance shopping legwork and never stops working. Compare 50+ insurers side by side and purchase directly in the app. No spam calls, no hidden fees. They'll even monitor price trends and can alert you to better rates. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today.